Hello, hello, and welcome to this week's masterclass, mini class. It's a mini class, not a master class. Just a mini little class to talk about sales in general and just the power of sometimes not taking every lead that comes your way. Okay. So, as we get started, I'm going to ask you, and if you're watching this on the replay, feel free to also answer the question of the day as well. All right. Whoops. All right. So if you had an extra hour each day, what would you do? Tell me in the comments. If you had an extra hour each day, what would you do? Well, and actually, this is an interesting question because since we're going to be losing an hour on Sunday, although it's not losing an hour, it's gaining an hour of sunshine. But I always find this transition, I don't know if I like which transition. I don't like either of the transitions, but I'm happy that we're going to get more sunshine next week. And it won't be dark at 6 o'clock, at least Eastern time. So I asked this question for a couple of reasons. That it happens to be daylight savings, but when we're thinking about this topic, why this is so important is because our time is the most valuable thing we have. Time is money. Okay. And we think about that in so many different ways. We think about that for our clients, like, time is money on your vacation. You can choose to stay further away from where you want to tour, but sometimes what happens is they want the best, they want a lower price, then they don't realize it's going to cost them time when they're there. So that's part of our job too. This is a little bonus tip. Um, Part of our job is that teaching our clients that when they're pricing out their vacation, the time they're spending is, we're thinking about all those different factors. Like, let me give you an example, even from my own trip. Um, we are yesterday, I had I had some, yesterday I didn't really have much work in my inbox, which was weird. And you don't ever say that. Well, but then today it all showed back up again. So, but what I did was I was getting my travels for the summer all organized, and I realized, so we are going to Toronto for a Blue Jays game because my son's trying to see all of the Major League Baseball stadiums. And on our way up there, we're going to stop at Niagara Falls. And I thought, let me book this hotel. And I'm looking at all the different hotels, and my husband and I went to Niagara Falls, like, in 2008, so it's been a while. And I looked at where we stayed then. We stayed at the DoubleTree, which we really liked, but see, we're only gonna be there for one day, because then we're driving to Toronto. So, since we're going to be, only there one day, I wanna be able to, you know, my time is money, meaning I want to just be able to walk out, go down to the falls, not have to traverse through all different things to get where we want to go, because we're going to be on I don't want to say a tight schedule, but it matters because it's only one day. Okay. So I paid a little more for the more central hotel versus the last time we went to Niagara Falls. We stayed at the Doubletree. It was wonderful, and there's nothing wrong with it. However, it's further away from, like, all of the main things, and which is fine, but for a day that we're trying to get a lot done, it made sense for I it made sense to me to stay at the closer to the center Marriott, to and then also to have a falls view. Because I think it's so interesting. Sometimes I do not care about a view whatsoever, but in places like Niagara Falls, especially if it's only one night you're staying there, I wanna wake up and I wanna look out the window and see the falls, I mean, but anyway, that but see, back then in 2008, I did not have that mindset. We wanted to be, close, but then I regretted not having a falls view, okay? So, as this relates to quote requests, because this is about getting leads, taking leads. So when you say yes to something, okay, when you say yes to doing anything, you're saying no to anything else we might accomplish with that time. Okay. So when you think about um, a quote request, things like that, all of that takes up your time. And so, and there's a couple of different ways I manage this when I get a new lead. The first thing is I do not issue a quote until I have all the information. I am not going to spend time on a quote until I know the person's email. Okay, for messaging. Or if they don't fill out a form. Because I had a lot of people contact me actually in the past week and over Messenger to book a trip. And that's all well and good. It's great. However, I'm not going to put any effort into a quote until I have at least an email. Okay, and so that's kind of my personal policy is I'm not going to waste my time on doing something if I don't know if this person is absolutely serious. And the other one, there was another person who messaged me and, wanting spring break. And I said, okay, fill it. And I gave her my quote request form because I wanted to see if she would fill it out. Because if you're not going to fill out my form, then, you're not serious enough about a trip that's going to happen next month. So, you know, and also the one person also messaged me like on a Saturday morning, and it was actually like we were celebrating my son's birthday this past weekend, so I was not working this weekend. And so I said, "Well, I won't be able to get to it till Monday." And then Monday I followed up with the form and I haven't heard back, so I did not take time away from celebrating my son's birthday to do a quote for someone who might just be thinking about it or and those are things you have to use your own judgment, okay? But we have to keep this idea in mind is our time is finite and when you are trying to balance your leads, you want to make sure you're taking the leads that will give you the most return on your time. Okay? Because I think a lot of times what we think of is we want the numbers, we want more clients, more bookings and things like that. But you can't you have to make sure you're balancing that with what you know and what you can do easily. So we don't and this is hard because you want to help everybody. Okay? And you don't want to disappoint them and you don't want to, be rude or unhelpful. But you have to say like I said, I'm not going to be in the office until Monday to the person who messaged me on Saturday morning, and that was true. Um Caitlin asked a good question. How do you word that to clients? So I try different ways. I don't just say, "Here's the form." Um, if I don't have their email address and they're on Messenger, if they're not gonna give me their email address, like, I'll say, "Okay, for me to get started on your quote, I need your email." Okay? And and for me to get started on your quote, I need you to fill out this form. And then if they don't fill out the form, I might ask, okay, well, what's your email so I can send you some questions? And if they don't respond, then I don't respond. Okay. Because someone who is trying to, sometimes people are price shopping too. And, if somebody's working on Saturday and they get that agent, great. Good for that agent. Good for them. They got what they needed. Okay. I made it clear that I wasn't going to, and if it were a different Saturday that I had nothing going on, it would have been different. But I did have stuff going on, so I, had to word it the way I did. Um, yeah, but you don't say like I'm not doing, but I say in order for me to do your quote to make it for me to do this. So now, what? And people will ask, well, you need to experiment. What if I don't have clients and need to build a client base? So I am a firm believer of working within a specialty and only taking leads from there. However, when you're first getting started, you don't know what's working. So you have to experiment. However, you cannot work on something if they're not giving you the information you need. And that's a big part of um qualifying, which we're going to talk in a mini class later this month too. So we'll talk about that in more detail. But I want you to think of how what you're saying yes to. Okay, if you're being focused. Okay, because what's happening is a lot of times people will give you crazy rabbit hole, great crazy trips that they want to book. Like say say they say, okay, we want to do, let's use the Niagara Falls example. We're gonna go to Niagara Falls in Toronto and we want this, this, and this. And but they never tell you the exact dates, or they never tell you how many people are going. You can't get started until you have that information. All right. And that's a practice that I use for everything. Because sometimes people want to get an idea. It's like, I need to know who all is going and what dates work best for you. Now, if they say dates don't matter, this is another thing qualifying, but we're going to go down the rabbit hole now for a second. Before you even quote, if you, so say you're like, okay, well, this will be the best date. Don't give them a quote yet. You're going to say, are these dates okay? I'm going to tell you 75% of the time, the dates that you picked, when they said the dates don't matter, all of a sudden they matter. So, oh, we can't do that. We have this and we have that. So before you waste any time, you want to make sure that the dates work. But I also want you to think of your expertise. If it's something that you know nothing about, is it going to be a good use of your time to go down the different rabbit holes? Now, again, if you're a brand new agent and you're trying to figure out what's working, sometimes you have to go down the rabbit holes. Okay. However, you have to start once you have an idea of what your specialty is and who your ideal client is, you're going to want to say yes to what builds your business, because as you are able to get that niche in, you're able to more quickly do quotes because you have templates. You're able to more quickly work through suppliers because you know which suppliers to go to. All right. It's using your time better when you are specialized. Okay. So again, if you're in the first year or so, you might still be trying to figure out your audience, your specialty, and that's okay. You might have to say yes to some other things, but understand that as you go through your career, you are going to start saying no. Okay. Because saying no retains the most precious thing in your life, which is your time. Okay. And sometimes a trip is just not meant for you. And I know when I get a lead that is not like in my wheelhouse, and sometimes I'm like, oh, well, I have a little bit of time, I can do this. And I start feeling weird. Like I don't know, because like the things I book, I'm family travel, cruises, that kind of thing. I can do those things like the back of my hand. But if somebody asked me for a safari in Africa, I don't know. Like, I would probably just say I would give them a referral to somebody else that I know specializes in those kinds of trips. And, as you start to specialize, you'll realize what your niche is and what people book with you and what you know really well. You always have to start with what you know well. Let me give you an example. An FIT to Brazil. I would not take this lead. Okay, an FIT is a customized tour that you put together. So it would probably take me 40 hours to research, quote, and that 40 hours, that might be an exaggeration, but even 10 hours, okay, is taken away from other quotes I can do quickly. Okay. Now, if there is nothing else going on in your business, then sure, work with it, see what you can do. Okay. But if you have lots going on, you have to know when to say this is not in my wheelhouse and be okay with referring them out to someone else. I'm sure there's somebody in your host agency, there's someone that you know that can do Brazil. Okay. But again, if you're still experimenting, well, let's see. Someone wants to go to Brazil. I've been to Brazil. Great. Okay. And then this is what I call intentional booking, meaning and this is from my actual business. These are numbers I went through my actual bookings. Okay. So year two, I was still kind of booking everything. All right. And as you can tell, when year three was the year I decided, okay, no, I'm specializing. I'm not saying yes to everything. My bookings doubled. Okay. And then as you can see, year 4 and 5, it kind of gradually goes up. Of a it's not as big of a jump, but they go up. And also, but look at that, it doubles when you have fun. And that is also part of once you figure out your specialty, people start referring you. and people start going places again. And so that all kind of comes into year 3 too. Year 3 is a magical year for agents. And these are number of bookings, okay? So as you can see, it helps when you are focused in because it allows you to do this multiplying easier. All right? So keep this in mind. And again, if you're newer, you might say yes to more things. But if you are like in year 3, year 2, you should be narrowing in on what your specialty is and when to say yes and when to maybe pass it on. All right? Because that helps you increase those bookings. Have a great day. I hope you have a wonderful weekend and I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.